What's up everybody, Mitch here with Fit for Moto. Welcome to yet another episode of In the Garage. Right now we have a brand new 2020 KTM450 SXF, and in today's show we're going to talk about what you need to do to a new bike before you get it out on the track of the trail. Okay, so first things first, these don't have to be done in any particular order, really. It's just kind of a list of things that you need to go through on the bike to make sure that everything is solid before you actually start the thing up, get it out on the track of the trail, and begin that break-in period, which is going to be a separate thing from what I'm talking about today. But it's important that you check all these things. Now, when you do buy these from a dealership, they do come with a checklist of things that they're supposed to check. However, are you really going to put the trust in some dude you don't know, that your bike has the fluid that it needs, all these kinds of things, so that you have no worries when you're out and about? So first things first, let's talk about setting up the levers. Let's talk about setting up the controls on how you actually want to ride on them. This is going to be a total personal preference type thing. And it's as simple as loosening off the bolts on your clutch lever, on your brake lever, and the handlebars are going to be actually underneath this handlebar pad to set the bars and the levers on how you want them. Like I mentioned, it really is just a personal preference type thing. So the position of the clutch lever, how close or far it is from the end of your handlebars, same thing with your front brake lever, the positioning for that as well, along with the height. You want to make sure that the height is comfortable for you. Now, I don't do a whole lot of trail riding, so I'm going to talk more specifically to motocross, but for me, I like to keep them in a position so that I'm kind of in that attack angle. If I'm hitting some bumps, my elbows are up, versus if the levers are way up and you've got to keep your hands sort of up, your elbows are going to be dropped down, and that's just kind of bad body language for being on the bike. So set these levers up and the handlebars in a position that's going to be comfortable to you when you're riding the bike. And the same thing is going to go when we talk about the height of the shift lever and the height of the brake lever. You can adjust all these things so that your foot positioning on the peg is not, hitting the levers when you don't want to. Maybe you don't like how far down you have to push the brake pedal before you actually start to get some rear braking in, that kind of thing. Same thing as your control levers on the handlebars. You want to set up these levers so that they're comfortable for you as well. Next up, let's talk about sag. And there's two types of sag. There's static sag and there's rider sag. So let's start off with the static sag. Static sag is going to be the difference between the distance between your axle and a measuring point up on your fender when your bike is up on a stand like this. So there's absolutely no load on the suspension whatsoever. And then the rider sag is going to be when you're fully kitted up, you got all the weight that you're going to have on your boots, your helmet, all that kind of stuff. And then you sit on the bike and you have someone measure that again. That's going to be your rider sag. Now, your static sag and your rider sag are actually going to both be in your owner's manual that you get with the bike. They're going to have a recommendation in that manual on what they need to be at. And they're actually really easy to do. So again, starting with that static sag, all you're going to do is you're going to find a measuring point on the axle. So just put the tape measure in there and then find a point on the fender that you actually just want to be able to measure it from. And you want to do it generally in millimeters. Write that number down, and then you're going to take the bike off the stand with just its own weight of itself, and you're going to measure that again. The difference between those two numbers is going to give you your static sag. As far as the rider sag goes, like I mentioned, you need to have all the weight on, the boots, the helmet, all that kind of stuff. You take your initial sag measurement from when there's no load on the spring whatsoever, sit on the bike in your rider position. I'll do another how-to video at a later date on exactly how to do that, but like I mentioned, it's really easy. And again, have somebody else measure that again. The difference between those two numbers is going to be your rider sag. Depending on the make and model, they generally recommend somewhere between 100 to 105 millimeters of sag. And that's really important when you get out there and you start riding your bike, because that's going to change the entire angle that the bike rides. Now, if you want it more stable at high speeds, you're going to want the back end to sit a little bit lower, versus if you want it to corner better, you're going to have the back end sit up so you have a different angle and the bike will turn and corner a little better. So again, just go with the manufacturer's recommendations in the owner's manual and you should be fine. Next up, let's talk about checking fluid levels, and it really is as easy as it sounds. You're going to want to check your antifreeze level, make sure that it's at the right level, as well as probably a good idea to check where your antifreeze is at in terms of the freezing point of it, check the density of it, that kind of thing. And that's really easy to do as well. All you need to do is go and pick yourself up. It can just be a really cheap antifreeze tester. I got this one at a local automotive place here near where I live. I think it was like 10 bucks or something, but it's really easy to use. All you do is you'll drop it down to where your antifreeze is. You'll squeeze it up into the tester, and then once you have it to the line where it asks you to get to, it'll show you at what point your antifreeze is going to freeze. It'll show you at what point it's good for. Make sure that your antifreeze is at a good enough point that it's going to help the engine cool as much as it needs to. And then once you've got your antifreeze dialed dialed in, check your oil level. You know, depending on the bike that you have, it likely will have a little oil sight glass on it. It's as simple as that. Again, check your owner's manual to see where in that glass is the recommended level. Some are pretty low, some are kind of in the upper to 3/4 part of the glass, but just check to make sure that you have enough oil in your bike. So you've got your antifreeze, you've got your oil checked. Next up, you can check your brake fluid levels. Really straightforward as well. Again, there's going to be a little sight glass that you can check up on the handlebars for your front brakes. Same thing with your rear brake. There should be a little sight glass that you can check for hydraulic fluid, and that's really it. Checking your fluid levels is that simple. All right, so next up, check your air filter. These generally will come in pretty good shape, again, from the dealership. They put them together, they know what to check, they have their checklist, but this is just another thing that's really great to check, is to check your air filter. So on the KTM, pretty easy. I mean, on all bikes, it's really easy to check your air filter, but you just want to give that a look and make sure that your air filter has got the oil that it needs on it. You don't want it to be dry, right? It's the same thing as cleaning your air filter. I have a how-to video up on that. I'll put the link up somewhere on how to clean and oil your air filter, but you want it to look like that so that it's got some oil on it. It's going to be able to catch any of the dirt or particulates that get in there on your first ride. So just make sure that your air filter is in good shape. So next up, it's a great idea just to give your spokes a quick check. Make sure that they're at the tension they need to be. Check your owner's manual, but I think they're generally around 6 Newton meters per. So it's a great idea to have a spoke torque wrench, which you can get from Tusk. That's the one that I run. I think it's about 80 bucks or so, but it saves your life in terms of making sure that your spokes are at the right tension. So double check your spokes, make sure that they're torqued properly so that you don't end up bending a rim or something right out of the gate. All right, so moving right along, check your chain tension. It's really important because if your chain tension is not where it should be, you're gonna have premature wear on your sprockets. It will just eat your sprockets up if your chain is a little too loose, and if it's a little too tight, it's gonna be hard on the chain. It's gonna pull it harder and your chain is gonna wear out fast as well. So check to make sure that your chain tension is proper. And along with that, while you're there, you might as well check to make sure that your chain has some lube on it. If it's coming from the factory, chances are it's gonna be pretty oiled up or pretty greased up, however that factory chooses to do it. But regardless, make sure that the tension is good on your chain and make sure that it's got some lube. And checking your chain tension is pretty easy. So just lift up your chain. You should be able to get 2 fingers or so between your chain and the slider itself. As you can see, I've got way more slack than that. That's too much. I can get probably 2.5. I can get 3 fingers in there. So that sounds a little dirty, but I should be able to only get a couple in there. So I'm gonna have to tighten this chain up a little bit before I ride. All right, and last but certainly not least, air pressure. Make sure that you check your air pressure in your tires. Depending on the tires, depending on the recommendation, it's probably gonna be anywhere from 12 to 15 pounds of pressure in your tires, so check your manual for that. But it's a really quick, simple thing. Check to make sure that your tire pressure is good so that you're not gonna, blow a tube or you're not gonna bend your rim or anything like that. Making sure that you're getting the traction that you need. And that's it, guys. It's really that simple. Just a little list of things to check before you get the bike out and begin that break-in process. Again, they don't have to be done in any specific order. And if you're a serious racer, we could talk about things like making sure that your suspension is set for a baseline so that you can move it from there depending on your rider preference. But this is just for a straight, it's come out of the box. You want to start the break-in process, whether that's on a track or a trail, and you're going from there. So I hope the video helped you in some way. If it did, like, comment, and smash that subscribe button for me. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on the next one.